So, listen, there's plenty of grist for the mill on this. Babe Buchanan is a Republican strategist who's good enough to join us. Roland Martin is a CNN analyst, political analyst. He and I went around and around on this yesterday, and I think maybe he owes me an apology, but we'll leave it at that.
No, I don't.
And here in New York is Michael Crowley, who, by the way, is a senior editor for New Republican. He is not related to Sergeant Crowley. Look at, I got you riled up before this whole thing's even started. All right, let me start with this, guys. And hey, any one of you who wants to jump in, I'd like, maybe you could even just raise your hand and say yes or no. Was this an adequate apology today from the President of the United States? Bay, start us off.
You know, I'm going to tell you, I think it was, because he said he spoke to the officer, and I'm absolutely certain that he probably apologized to the officer for any type of demeaning of his reputation whatsoever. And then he publicly walked away from the statement, saying that he misspoke. He really was out of line to have done what he had done. I don't think the president has to apologize to us. I think he has to apologize to the man that was offended into that police department, and he did so.
But he is the one that really escalated this thing, Roland. So he did have to say something, right?
First of all, let me correct your question. You said, was it an adequate apology? It was not an apology, so even saying it's adequate is erroneous.
Oh, interesting. So you don't even think it was an apology?
No, it wasn't. It wasn't, because first of all, he reiterated his original position in terms of Gates being arrested. Part of the problem here is that so many people, including Rick, and I had to correct you on the air, when people talked about stupidly. He never called the officer stupid.
No, but I never once, hold on. I never once said that he called the officer stupid.
I know, but
he said he acted. The key word acted there. Acted stupidly.
No. See, but you left again the other half in arresting Gates after he established proof. Look, here's the reality that we also are ignoring.
You're parsing words. Same thing.
No, I'm not parsing words. I'm stating fact. And that's the problem, Rick. If you don't do the second half, don't ignore just the first half. Here's the other piece. If this was a just arrest, why were charges dropped?
So you're still thinking the president shouldn't even apologize?
No.
You're still thinking that the officer was wrong and Gates was completely right.
I'm asking a question. I'm asking a question. If this was a just, wait. If it was a just arrest, why would charges drop? Answer that question.
Politics and media.
No, answer the question.
I just did.
Why
Politics and media.
Well, if it was a just arrest, they would not have been dropped.
Roland, I got to tell you.
Can I jump in and say?
All right, go ahead. Go ahead, Crowley.
Well, I think this. First of all, I'd like to say it's about time that Crowley was invited to the White House for beers. All right, no relation, but I've been trying to get my own invite for beers in the White House. But I think the argument we're seeing and the emotions this is raising is exactly why Obama felt like he had to take control, because this story was spiraling out and becoming a whole bunch of things that the White House doesn't want the national conversation to be about right now. And I think he's played it really well. I think he's essentially saying, I went a little too far. I admitted I didn't know all the facts. I judged this guy a little harshly, but he's also not saying, I think appropriately, it's a total apology, because I think it's pretty clear this officer overreacted at the end of the day.
But we're still left with the President of the United States, who it seems at this point, and maybe even admittedly, prejudged a case without the facts.
In fact, he offered an opinion.
Listen, no, this is what many officers' opinion is. Listen to this. This is one of the officers in Cambridge. Let's hear what he has to say, Roland, and then you could perhaps dispute him.
As far as the president's comments, the governor's comments, and comments that I did not hear that our mayor made, I think when the time is right, they should make an apology to us. I think the president should make an apology to all law enforcement personnel throughout the entire country who took offense to this.
Oh, please. Get a grip.
He's absolutely right.
He does not know all law enforcement apology. He spoke specifically about the Cambridge police who arrested Gates. That is nonsense.
You don't think the President of the United States prejudged this case before having the facts?
The President of the United States gave his opinion in terms of Gates being arrested, and he simply said he should not have been arrested after he established he was the owner of the home. That's what he said.
You know, you know what is key here is that the president really was wrong, Roland. And it's time for you to be half the class that the president had. He was wrong when he rationally
don't talk about class with the Buchanan family.
He offended. You know, I will stand on that class any day of the week and take you on.
But
you can
bring it dragged away in
He offended the law enforcement officers because he rationally judged. He said, okay, here's an incident. We will say immediately it's the fault of the policeman. These guys are fighting and trying to protect protect Americans across the country.
If you know the facts, what do you think Gates did to deserve being arrested on his own porch? He got loud with the police officer? That is not an arrestable
He got abusive.
Well,
actually,
if a police officer decides that you have committed disorderly conduct, it is the vaguest, most opaque thing in the world.
That's like Iran.
Well, unfortunately,
so why would charges drop?
He makes his argument. You know, either way, when you look at this, we're still looking at a situation where what I'm arguing now is because we hear a lot about prejudice, and maybe what this is pointing out is that in some measure we're all a little prejudiced sometimes, aren't we, Roland?
Yeah, people have prejudices. People have views based upon how they've grown up. People also have different interactions. Bay can sit here on television, talk about how our officers protect us, and we do. But also, where I come from, I also know officers who've beaten folks down unnecessarily.
Well, of course. But that's not fair. We all know cases, anecdotes that we could bring in.
Rick, it's called perspective.
That doesn't mean, because here's the point. Here's the point, and this I think is important. Is racial profiling so rooted in us as Latinos and as African Americans that it can even cause a president to prejudge? I mean, that's actually an interesting question.
I'm sorry. No, is racial profiling so prevalent that it can call a president who happens to be black, who probably has experienced it, who sponsored a bill to confront it?
To do what?
Maybe he's also experienced it, Rick. You have to add that in as well.
Remember that he was also talking about a friend. He was friends with Gates, which adds an extra layer of complication. He's going to have automatic sympathies. But listen, I think it's probably true. There's some level of prejudice that everyone has, but this goes back to the race speech that Obama gave during the campaign, that beautiful speech in Philadelphia where he tried to say that.
I
understand that there's a lot of good reason why black Americans have frustrations, but white Americans do too, and this is the dialogue he promised in the campaign.
Well, you're right. Bay, take us out. You get the last word.
All right. The key here is when a police officer does abuse his power, all of us, white, black, Hispanic Americans, come and say outrage, outrage. But when the white policeman does exactly what, oh, come on now, that's an outrageous statement. When the policeman does what's right, as is this case, it's time for black America to step back and say, you know, this time that police officer did everything correct, and maybe the black professor really made some mistakes here.
Why were charges
write him a ticket. Don't arrest him. Write him a ticket.
Well, you know, Ted Fine is going to yell at me in my ear again. He's already told me 3 times we got to end this thing. Roland, you and I are still best friends, okay?
Oh, I'm good. But if the rest was just, they wouldn't have dropped charges.
All right, everybody's entitled. Thank you guys. Great stuff.
Thanks.